Greetings, fellow workers. In the spring of 1903, I went to Kensington, Pennsylvania, where 75,000 textile workers were on strike. Of that number, at least 10,000 were little children. Each day, the workers who were striking for, more pay and better hours, the children would come in to the union headquarters with hands off, thumbs off, fingers up to the knuckles gone. And they were tiny little things, skinny and round-shouldered. A great crowd gathered in the public square in front of the city hall. And I put the little boys with their fingers and hands crushed and maimed up on the platform. I held up their mutilated little hands and I showed them to the crowd. I made a statement that Philadelphia's mansions were built on the broken bones, the quivering hearts, and the drooping heads of these little children, that their little lives were spent making money for the wealthy, that neither state nor city officials paid any bit of attention to these wrongs. They did not care for the children who were going to be the future citizens of our country. I cried to the officials in the open squares opposite, someday the workers will take possession of City Hall, and when they do, no child will be sacrificed on the altar of profit. But the officials quickly closed their windows, just as they had closed their hearts and their eyes. But that gave me an idea. The little children were striking for some of the freedoms that childhood ought to have. And I decided that the children and I would go on a tour. The children each carried a little knapsack with a knife, a fork, a tin cup, and a plate. And one little fella had a drum, and another one had a fife, so we had a band. We carried banners that said, "We want more schools and less hospitals. We want time to play. Prosperity is here. Where's ours?" I decided to go with the children to visit President Roosevelt, to ask him to push a law prohibiting the exploitation of childhood. I thought President Roosevelt might see these middle children and compare them with his own children, who were spending their summers by the seaside, out in Oyster Bay. I thought, too, out of politeness, that we might call on J.P. Morgan, who owned Wall Street and who owned the mines where many of these little children's fathers worked. As we passed Princeton University in New Jersey, a great crowd gathered, professors and students and people. "Here's a textbook on economics," I said, pointing to a little chap, James Ashworth, who was 10 years old and all stooped over like an old man from carrying bundles of yarn that weighed 75 pounds apiece. He gets $3 a week, and his sister, who's 14, gets $6. They work in the carpet factories 10 hours a day, while the children of the rich are getting their higher education. From Jersey City, we marched to Hoboken, then on more miles to New York, where they finally let our little band in. We marched to 20th Street, near Wall Street. I showed them Gussie Ragnow, from whom all childhood was gone. Her face was like an old woman's. Gussie Peck's stockings in a factory, 11 hours a day for a few cents. The trouble is that Washington, no one cares. I saw our legislators in 1 hour pass 3 laws for the relief of the railways. But when you ask them to come to the rescue of little children, they don't listen. I asked a man in prison once how he happened to be there. He told me he stole a pair of shoes. I told him if he'd stolen a railroad, he'd be a U.S. Senator. We marched down to Oyster Bay, but the president refused to see us. And he wouldn't answer my letters. But our march did its work. We had drawn the attention of this nation to the crime of child labor. Well, now look what you got here today. Children in Arkansas working in the middle of the night with deadly chemicals, cleaning slaughterhouses. Iowa and a dozen other states passing laws that make it legal for 14-year-olds to work in meat packing and factories. Children working in construction, sawmills, out in the fields, ungodly hours for slave wages, when they ought to be in school. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Just in my day, these are fighting times. Organize! These pirates and lizard brains, like some in the Supreme Court, will take us all the way back to 1900 if we let them. You fight, and you may win, or fight, and you may lose. But whatever you do, fight. So let's get to work. Pray for the dead, and fight like hell for the living. Woo!